This conference will now be
All right,
recorded.
good morning, everyone. I'm going to, Verizon says it's 10 a.m., so I'm going to call to order the Town of Ocean Ridge Special Magistrate Hearing. Happy New Year. It is already January 9th. We're well into the new year already. By Verizon's time, it's 10 a.m. My name is Amity Barnard. I'm the Special Magistrate presiding over this morning's hearing. A little bit about process. I think there's only one violation hearing on the agenda today, but the way that the process will work is typically the town calls the cases as they appear on the agenda. Once they do that, the town will present its evidence, any witnesses either at the podium here or the chair to my left or at the main podium in front of me. Once the town presents all witnesses, all evidence, all testimony, then it will be the time of the respondents to appear at the same podium right in front of me, present any evidence, any testimony they have, cross-examine any witnesses that the town puts on. At the end of that dialogue, I'll make a final ruling and an order will be issued that reflects that ruling. The first thing I'm going to do this morning is swear anybody in who's here to testify on any of the items on today's agenda. So if you are here to testify, could you stand and raise your right hands for me? Do you all swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Very good. With that, the first item on the agenda is adoption of the November 7th, 2023 minutes. I reviewed those and they are adopted as drafted, and I'll turn it to the town to call its first case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Christy Gunn on behalf of the Town of Ocean Ridge. The case on today's agenda is case number 2023-013. The property at issue is Sailfish Lane. Property owner, according to the property appraiser's office, is Turtle Beach of Ocean Ridge Condo Association Incorporated. This involves a violation of section 70-6 of the town's code of ordinances involving beach signs. Your Honor, we do have, and I don't know if we're having technical difficulties, but we do have a file of evidence to be presented, and just for the record, this includes the affidavit and notice of violation, including a delivery receipt, a copy of section 70-6 of the town's code, the property appraiser's information for the property at issue, an Ocean Ridge Police Department CAD report on the initial inspection, an Ocean Ridge Police Department incident report on the progress of the case, photographs that were taken at the property, an affidavit regarding the town's cost of $172.53, and a mailing receipt. I don't know, do we have a hard copy?
She has it on digitally, but I do not have a hard copy. I can print one off.
So, given the technical difficulties, if you want to proceed with putting on your case, and then when respondents are called, I'll have them review the files on this tablet, and then that'll be the same as a hard copy if that's amenable to both sides.
It is, Your Honor.
Okay, very good, sir. Thank you.
Do you want me to enter appearance on the record?
Go ahead and let the town present its case, and then I'll call you to the podium so you can be standing there for the duration.
Okay, Your Honor, we have Officer Aaron Chopin here to testify on behalf of the Town of Ocean Ridge.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. All right.
And just for the record, your name, sir?
Sergeant Aaron Chopin.
And your position, you're sergeant with the town's police
Correct.
department? Okay.
And we also do code enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I'll give a little bit of background on when we, if you don't mind, just brought in the new ordinance, and then kind of give a timeline of what happened from there. On September 5th, 2023 at 1800 hours, there was a town commission meeting held in these chambers. And then obviously the new beach sign ordinance was voted in and established on that date and time. The ordinance establishes reasonable time, place, and manner regulations for signs on beach property. I have a copy of the ordinance here, but after it was adopted, it went into effect immediately. And then on the 15th of September, myself and another officer that works for the department, we went out on a department all-terrain vehicle, rode along the beach and did inspections of all the signs that were on the beach. And after determining which signs were in violation from that inspection, we sent out mailers, which were sort of a generic letter that said, you know, you're in violation of this new ordinance. And a copy of the ordinance was attached with the letter, and it said, please come into compliance within the next 30 days because there was a 30-day grace period that was established with this ordinance.
And before you proceed, was that the equivalent to a courtesy notice, or was that an actual notice of violation?
It was a courtesy notice.
Okay,
So, and it was mailed with like a receipt, what do they call that? Certified mail. But for whatever reason, the certified mail, when we went and looked on the tracking, it didn't show that it ever arrived at the area that we sent it to, which in this case, for this case, was 5101 North Ocean Boulevard, which is the Turtle Beach community. However, although it didn't arrive at that destination according to the tracking, we did begin and establish a conversation with the condo association through their HOA president, Mark Feinstein. And we had discussed, why the signs were in violation. I believe the initial violations had to do with there being too many signs, because there's a part of the ordinance that states that there can only be, should be placed at least 200 feet apart, and their property extended something like 267 feet roughly, and there was more than 2 signs on the property initially.
Your Honor, may I object that this is irrelevant to the charge today?
Okay, I can skip that.
I'll allow him to proceed. You'll get an opportunity to cross-examine him, but I'll note your objection.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
To make a long story short, there were some violations, then there were attempts to come into compliance as we continued to talk to Mr. Feinstein. But ultimately, on December 13th, I did an inspection on the property, and there were 2 violations. The first was the subsection 1, where it says signs are not allowed to be erected or placed on the beach seaward of the toe of the frontal dune, mean high water line, erosion control line, or toe of a seawall, whichever is more landward. Frontal dune, for the purpose of this section, means the first natural or man-made mound or bluff of sand, which is located landward of the beach, which has sufficient vegetation, height, continuity, and or configuration to offer protective value. There was 2 signs, one on the north end of the property and one on the south end of the property, that were both seaward of the frontal dune. The one that was on the southern end of the property was approximately 9 foot from the elevation change that would constitute the frontal toe of the dune, and we do have a picture of the sign. And then the one on the northern end was approximately 12 feet from the elevation change that would constitute the frontal toe of the dune. And then the second violation was subsection 7, where it says the face of the sign shall be or shall either face to the east or to the west. And both the sign on the northern end of the property and the southern end of the property have signage on the east and the west end of the post. So there's one post with a sign on either side facing both east and west, not either or, if that makes sense.
Okay, go ahead.
And yeah, so that was the 2 violations. A notice of violation was given that day, and a notice of magistrate hearing was given as well. I had the affidavit of notice signed by Mr. Feinstein on that same date. A compliance date was given of 12/23. If the compliance date was not met, the magistrate hearing would go on even if it came into compliance after the fact. I did an inspection on 12/23. I didn't see any changes on that date. And so here we are.
Your Honor, may I just ask a couple questions?
Go ahead.
Did you do a follow-up inspection of the property?
Yes, on 12/23.
Okay, have you done a follow-up inspection since then?
I also went today, and the signs are, as of today, are still double-sided, and they still are that approximate amount of feet from the frontal toe of the dune.
Okay. And do you know if the hearing date was originally set for an earlier hearing date?
Yes, it was originally set for the 2nd, and then the date was pushed back to today.
Okay.
I believe an email was sent out to Mr. Feinstein, and a mailer was sent by the town clerk.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Does the town have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, sir, I'll ask you to sit down just for 1 second. I expect you'll be called back for a cross here in a minute, but I'll have respondents come to the podium and give their appearance.
Sure.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Spencer Sachs. I'm representing the association.
And spell your last name for me, just so I get it right.
SAX.
And you're obviously counsel for the association,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, any cross-examination of the town's witness?
Sure.
Okay, very good. I guess,
Where would you like me to stand?
no, you go ahead and stand there and I'll ask the sergeant if that microphone is working
Yes.
over there. If he can come there. Yes, sir, just so that the system picks up everything that's said.
May I proceed?
Go ahead, sir.
Sergeant, I just want to clarify one thing. You were out there, what was the last time you were out there?
I went out this morning.
Okay. Are the signs that you saw there today the same signs you saw when you did the initial violation citation?
They appear to be, yes.
Let me show you some photos. And do they also appear in the exact same location where you previously saw them?
As far as I can tell, I mean, they appear to be at the same location.
Okay. May I first witness?
Yeah, let me have you pause cross real quick and let's get documents because it looks like you have a
Yeah.
stack of things here. So what I'll ask is,
I have 3 copies, one for you, one for. the-
perfect, let's go ahead and get all the documents in at once. These are the towns, if I can ask the town attorney to. Go through that with them. And once she goes through that with you, then you can show her your
Should I go walk
documents.
around to her?
You can probably stand just right there in front, or she'll come down to
I'm
you.
looking at this
Yes,
thing.
that's okay. You can-
So I'm gonna walk through
Sure.
these
I'll hold it.
with you guys.
Oh, it'll move as you go.
Okay, yeah, if you want to go down. So the first page obviously is today's agenda.
Sure.
Um,
No, that's said an affidavit, but I'll back up. Here's the agenda.
Okay.
No objection.
Then next is page 102, it's the affidavit and notice of violation.
No objection.
Okay, so scroll down to the second page. The next document is the chapter 70 beach signs.
No objection.
Okay. Then the next document is the property appraiser printout.
No objection.
Okay. And then below that is a multiple page document. This is the Ocean Ridge Police Department CAT event form.
Yeah, I haven't seen this before, so I haven't had an opportunity to review it.
Take as much time as you need to review the file right now, please.
This is just really showing sort of how the initial inspection went. That Sergeant Chauvin spoke about starting in September when it first went out and looked at the signs.
Let's see. Let me just make a general objection to hearsay minutes. I don't know what that record is, really. It's not for any truth of the matter asserted in it.
I'll note your objection, but just keep in mind that the formal rules of evidence do not apply here in code enforcement, so I'll note your objection, but.
And I would also say that Sergeant Copeland's testimony corroborates any alleged hearsay.
What's the next document?
Then there's the receipt affidavit.
Yes,
showing-
no objection.
Okay. And then next is the offense report from the Ocean Ridge Police Department. And this is just a standard police incident report regarding essentially what Sergeant Coben testified to regarding the progress of the case, the sign code, along with the follow-up inspections that were done.
There's a lot here. Again, I'd make the same hearsay objection. It's a narrative that he typed, and I mean, I can cross-examine his live testimony, but I can't cross-examine this document.
And I would say, Your Honor, we have the witness present that prepared this document, and if it's hearsay, it's been corroborated by his own testimony. The next one is just pictures taken of the beach signs at issue.
How about the date?
You'll have to have Sergeant Coburn testify to the date of those photographs.
But it hasn't been established yet, so I'll object to the admissibility of the document. There's no predicate laid.
No, all right, noting your objection, go ahead, get through the rest of the documents and then we'll get to your documents and we'll get through the exhibits.
After the photographs is a copy of the town's cost recovery worksheet showing the costs. $172.53.
No objection.
And then below that is just the mail receipt.
No objection.
That's it.
If you can go back to this photo, because I'll use that with the witness.
Okay.
Back to you. Okay. There you go.
Let's see, this is.
The picture from the photo is signed.
And then go ahead and show her while
Oh, sure.
we're doing exhibits, go ahead and show her your exhibits and then I'll get her any objections and then I'll see your exhibits as well.
Do you want us to mark them by number or just identify?
They can
by-
just be respondents composite exhibit 1 if that's amenable to
Sure.
you.
So I'll.
Yeah, go ahead and
show
present
it
them to her.
council.
Sure.
So these photos of,
Sure, we can, I
sure,
don't know if your corporate partner can
sure.
hear.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. The first photos are the photos of what I believe to be the sign he saw, and it's consistent with what you have in
Okay.
yours. Then, more photos, longer distance. This is the current sign that he would have seen today, which is a different sign at a different location. So it's 4 of those, 5 of those. And then there's a site plan that shows that the witness, my witness, will use to describe the location of the signage.
I don't have
Any objection from the town to those?
on their exhibits.
If I could see those, sir,
Sure.
thank you. And if,
Do you know the total page count, just so we can have it for the record?
I don't, but I have multiple copies of each, so I can
Okay.
hand it out
All
physically.
right, great.
so this is multiple copies, so let's
Yeah, so-
separate. I'll
so,
take one
right.
of each then.
Exactly.
Maybe I'll take one of each.
May I give the other copy to counsel, who can also show it to the witness at the same time?
That's fine.
Okay. I don't know if I have multiple copies of the site plan.
Okay, that can be passed around. Actually, it looks like you do.
Just one.
Is it all this, looks to be all the same, would you agree?
Okay, good. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
You have to thank you for each one.
All right, so by my count, in respondents composite exhibit, which I'll designate as composite exhibit 2, there are 7 photographs and 1 site plan. So I'll enter those into the record without objection. I'll also enter in the town's evidentiary case files composite exhibit 1 over objection. And I'll have, once respondents finish with cross-ex, I'll ask a few questions of the code officer relative to the photos. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Officer, the first photo that we have here is a black and white sign, double-sided.
Right.
Is that the sign that you saw on the initial inspection?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And does this also accurately represent the approximate location of the sign on that date?
Probably. It's hard to say. I mean, I'd have to look at my photo and compare it, to be
Okay,
honest.
well, you have the photos there.
Of my picture that I took.
I would hope so. Well, I just always put it to evidence by the.
Right, I don't know if they have a physical copy or,
Can you pass this? Since the screen is not working.
Yeah, I can only rely on the photos that are in evidence, so.
Can I see that again?
Sure.
And, Sergeant Coker, just for the record, do you know what number of PDF you're looking at on the town's exhibits? If you tell me the page number of the PDF, it should be up at the top.
16?
Thank you.
Oh, no, maybe that isn't 16.
I'm going to ask you to measure it specifically. Was this an approximation of what you
Sure,
saw?
sure.
Okay, good. Same thing on the second photo that was provided to council and to your honor.
Speak up.
On the, sure. On the right-hand side, is that the approximate location of where it was at the time that you inspected?
Yes.
Okay, and your honor, I was referring to these two photos, again, because they're not A, B, and C, so I can
These two?
reference it,
Okay,
yes.
very good. Yep, that's what I was
Okay.
going on, thank you.
All right, and then when you went out there today, did you see that black sign? Black and white sign?
It may have been a different time.
Okay, and do you know whether that sign you saw today was at that precise location as depicted in these two photos?
The exact precise location, I don't think I could say that it was exactly in the same spot.
Did you take any measurements?
I took an approximate measurement this morning
What were you measuring it from?
from the sign to the beginning of the elevation change.
Okay.
And it's an approximate, measurement, obviously.
What was the approximate measurement?
On the southern end of the property, the sign there, I think it was around 9 feet away from the beginning of the elevation change. And then on the other one, on the north end, it was like 12 approximately.
Okay, and how did you determine where the elevation started?
Where the vegetation and things like that are along the dune, as it just started to make any change is kind of where I did my approximate.
Was there any slope at all downward from where you took the measurement till you got to the sign?
You're saying from the dunes, was there any,
Yes,
well, I mean, the whole beach slopes.
okay. Well, let me ask you this. You're familiar with the ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There's a definition of frontal dune in sub 1 of the ordinance, correct?
Mhm.
I'll give you a copy.
I think I have mine.
Would you agree with me that there is no definition of toe of the frontal dune in this ordinance?
Toe, no, there's a definition for frontal dune.
Correct, but so as far as determining where the toe of the frontal dune is, there is no guidance given in this ordinance or any other ordinance, as far as you know, as to where that is and how to measure it. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I measured out to the area that has sufficient vegetation, height, and continuity or configuration to offer protective value.
Okay. Did you see any actual measurement in this statute or this ordinance that says how many feet out it can be or can't be?
No, just that it can't be erected or placed on the beach seaward.
Okay. And do you, again, if no definition of toe of the dune is here, have you had prior experience to determine what that definition should be? Or you just use your best judgment?
Just using my best judgment.
Okay, would you agree with me that different people's judgments can differ?
Sure.
Are you familiar with the general concept of ambiguity in an ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Are you also familiar with grandfathering of structures in the town?
Generally, yes.
Okay, in fact, in 2022, there was an ordinance passed that specifically related to the codification of grandfathering structures, correct?
Yeah, possibly, I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Okay,
I'll take your word, though, I mean.
that's fine. I have a copy of the ordinance.
Right.
Okay. Are you also familiar with the defense of prior approval?
No, go ahead.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Are you aware of anyone else in the town who who previously had a conversation with Mr. Feinstein on behalf of the association, in which they indicated that this specific location of these specific signs were acceptable to the town.
Yeah, so another officer, as we inspected him, his interpretation of maybe where the dune started, he was looking at it as, along the beach, it peaks and valleys at different points, and maybe looking down the beach and saying, okay, well, I see where it peaks at this one point. But my interpretation of it was, that wherever the sign was placed, it needs to be placed not seaward of the toe of the dune where it is at the placement.
Did
Because
that-
obviously there's a differentiation between one point on the beach, it's much farther back in certain areas, and it's much further up on other areas.
Did that officer's interpretation differ from yours?
Yes,
Did that indicate to you that reasonable people could differ as to the interpretation? As far as a specific measurement in the ordinance as to how many feet from the water, how many feet off of the dune, do you see anything in the ordinance on that?
no, not a specific measurement.
Are you also familiar with the defense or the legal concept of vagueness?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the questions for the sergeant regarding legal defenses, as if counsel wants to make a legal argument, he can, but that the officer is not appropriate to ask for a legal opinion.
Noted. I mean, that's a fair objection. He's a sergeant of a police department. He's not a lawyer. So as I understand it, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so
Unfortunately.
you can certainly you can explain it to him and ask him his understanding, but
I'll ask you,
thank you, sir.
did you give consideration to any possible defenses that the association had before you decided to cite my client?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Did you give any consideration to any possible defenses that my client could have
Oh, sure,
before you decided to cite them?
sure. We had many back and forth discussions about the ordinance and interpretations of it, and, it's a new ordinance, so obviously, I'm kind of learning it as we introduce it. So we've discussed things back and forth, and there were changes that were made, so it's not like, we just immediately came by.
Well, let me ask you this way then. The fact that it's a new ordinance, has there been any judicial determinations as far as you know as to the legality of it, the enforcement of it, anything relating to it?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. You don't have any administrative rulings on
No.
it? Okay. Is it your understanding that the purpose of the ordinance was to minimize sign pollution?
I don't know the purpose of it, to be honest with you.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Prior to the ordinance, was the issue that you were aware of was that signs should not face north and south, but it was more important to face east and west, so that if you walked along the beach, you would not see the signage as much?
I think one of the issues was, yes, so that if someone was moving up and down the beach, north and south, if the signs were facing north and south, it could interpret that they weren't able to pass through that area. And then I think another complaint was just a volume of signs. Certain properties had large volumes of signs, so.
And was one of the other complaints that a lot of people had their signs right in the middle of the flat part of the beach?
Yeah, that they were out in the middle of the beach essentially, or far out from the dune, yes.
Are the subject signs here in the middle of the beach?
Well, it depends on, how the beach is that day.
Well, when you were there, was it in the middle of the beach?
Right, well, but I'm saying by 5 o'clock today, it's gonna be different than it is now. It's hard to answer that question because the beach is different every day.
So you're saying it's a moving target?
Well, certainly, I mean, the beach moves up and down, and there's times where the beach is all the way up to the dunes.
Sure. And the dunes actually also vary as you walk along the beach, right?
Yeah, they can vary slightly, yeah.
Let's talk about the language, specific language of the ordinance. Do you have a copy in front of you now?
Yes.
Okay. Taking a look at number 7,
Mhm.
that is the subsection that you are citing my client for, correct?
Correct.
You would agree with me that it would be a lot clearer if the actual wording was, the face of the sign shall face either the east or to the west, but not both. Those additional words, but not both, would certainly clarify that ordinance, wouldn't it?
I mean, sure.
Are we the one and only association, one and only property owner along the beach who decided for a double sign?
I believe so.
Do you know why our client has a double sign on the property?
Probably so that if someone's coming from the roadside, they can see it, or if someone's coming from the beach, they can, well, from the east, let's say.
Are you aware of any issue our clients had with any transient on either to the north or to the south?
I mean, I know they've had ongoing issues with people in the area, sure.
You aware that litigation exists between the people on
Yes.
Tropical Drive and our client?
Yes.
In fact, some of them are here today, right?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay, and they had nothing to do with noting, they bringing this to your attention, right?
No, this was part of, like I said, the inspection after the ordinance was passed.
One thing I do want to understand about this ordinance, you would agree with me that my client could have a sign that faces east and have a second sign that faces west. They wouldn't have to both face east or both face west, right?
Correct.
And so you're saying that your issue here is because it's facing east and west, somehow that violates the intent of the statute or the ordinance?
Well, very simply, it just says it should face either, or shall either face to the west or the east. It doesn't say either or both.
Right, does it say both?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's a very simple interpretation of, says shall either face to the east or. I interpreted that as one or the other.
But we could have one sign that faces east and one that faces west. That's how you also.
Yeah, you could have one, yes, exactly, yes.
You're not looking for one direction only
No, well,
on a property.
so if you had, the one on the north only had one facing east and the other one on the other side was facing west, yeah, that wouldn't be an issue.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask for that iPad, or whatever that?
Your Honor, I just have a couple follow-up questions.
Thank you, go ahead.
Sergeant Copen, how long have you worked for Ocean Ridge Police Department?
In February, it'll be 6 years.
Okay, and based on your time with Ocean Ridge Police Department, how many times have you been at the beach?
I don't know, hundreds.
Does the beach in Ocean Ridge present a uniform appearance?
No,
Do the dunes for beach property present a uniform appearance?
no.
And based on your experience, would the toe of the dune for a beach property vary depending on which property you're looking at?
Yes.
And in this case, looking at the photographs provided by the respondent, does the property, how many signs does the property currently have?
I believe 3. Those 2, and then there's one on their walkway.
Okay, and with the 2 signs to the north and south, not the walkway one, they have 2 faces, is that correct?
Correct.
So arguably, they have 4 signs on their beach. 5 signs total.
Correct.
In your opinion on subsection 7 of the ordinance, that reads, the face of the sign shall either face to the east or to the west. Does that need any further clarification?
No, I think it's fairly simple, and like I said, I thought that was pretty straightforward when I read it, so.
Okay, so it appears that based on your plain reading of the ordinance, that it's clear they can have a sign that either faces to the east or a sign that faces to the west.
Correct.
And based on your reinspection of the property this morning, is it your opinion that the signs still appear respectively 9 and 11 feet
Yes, approximately 9 and 12.
seaward of the toe of the dune?
Correct.
I have nothing further to add.
All right, let me ask the sergeant a couple of questions. I guess I need to look at the same pictures. Do you have the pictures on your computer as well? Can you, the town's pictures? You have, actual one's perfect, thank you.
Want to make sure that council can see so that he has the same.
May I stand over his shoulder?
You can, yeah. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Thank you for accommodating by standing there by him. Just a couple of questions. So and these are in, let me ask the clerk, these are in the same order as what's on the computer?
Yeah, just the pictures are out of the thing. I think they should be in the same order. They were just
Okay.
handed to me, so I'm not
Oh, I
sure.
don't know.
Pictures aren't in the order of the packet.
Well, I just spread them out. I don't know if they're in the same order.
Okay, I'll show you what I'm looking at. Can you see this photo from here?
Yes, okay, so that's the first one.
Right, that photo is still there as of your inspection this morning? I mean, that sign rather?
Well, the actual sign apparently is different. I mean, if
But the post is still there?
The post is.
So the location of the post is the same as in
Yes,
this
it's basically
photo?
the same one, yes.
And the date of this photo is,
I can tell you from. Sorry.
I guess let me ask you this way, are all the photos that are in this packet from your initial inspection or your re-inspection on the
My
23rd?
initial.
Your initial,
Yes. for the
Okay.
15th, Yes, ma'am.
okay.
And just for the record, that's page 15 of 20 in the PDF.
Correct, page 15, right. So pages 15 through 18, all the photos in here are from December 13th? That you
Yes.
took, okay. And your testimony was that on your reinspection on the 23rd, you gave them 10 days to comply
Mhm.
in your notice, so on the reinspection, the signs were exactly the same as in these photos that I'm looking at from the 13th?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Let me ask the town before I ask him any more questions, what's the town seeking in terms of remedy for today?
Your Honor, we would just like for the signs to be in compliance with the code in terms of either having a face of the sign facing east or west, and then that the signs be moved back so they're at the toe of the dune. We would ask for 10 days for compliance. And failure to comply, we would ask for a fine of $250 per day.
And I guess while I have the respondent's testimony was something about a grandfathering ordinance in the town code. Can you explain?
There is a grandfathering provision in the code. It's not applicable to signs, it's applicable to structures. Signs are governed by a different chapter in the town's code. And the ordinance that was specifically passed for this section provided a 30-day, essentially, amortization schedule to bring the signs into compliance.
All right, so by ordinance, they were given 30 days, but this new ordinance applies to all signs, whether or not they were installed prior to or
Correct.
after the ordinance effective date. And how many signs need to be moved back?
It would be 2 posts, there's 2 signs on each, but I mean, let's just say the structure of the sign it would be 2.
2 total. And I guess, can you tell me in the photos which 2?
Yeah, so can I look at my phone to know the order, because whatever order I took them on is what they should have been.
Let me give you this so that
Okay.
it's the same thing. And go ahead, counsel, you can look over his shoulder too.
Okay, so 15 and 16 are the same sign, they're just, one is from the west and one is from the east, and that would be the sign on the southern end of the property. 17 and 18 are, again, one picture is 17 is from the east facing west, and then 18 is from the west part of the sign facing east towards the ocean, and that is the northern sign.
So there are 4 signs or 5 there now? 4, only 4 at issue today?
2 posts that each have
2
signs on them,
faces,
so
right, okay.
yes. So,
I would like to state an objection for the record in that we were not cited for too many signs.
Yeah, I just want to understand, I want to make sure I understand where the signs are relative to the photos that were taken, but I'll note your objection. I have that. Sure. Thank you. All right, now. Let me ask you, counsel, what's the date of this photo?
The exact date, Mark?
Right after the notice, so on December 23rd, right around before Christmas.
Okay, so this sign is, on the right is now, this is the same location, correct?
Basically, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So this sign is gone, this sign is there now?
Correct.
Okay. And this is on the
That's on the south side.
side, okay,
When I get up, I'll show you on the site plan.
okay. And this is, counsel, this is the same sign, just varying
Yes,
distances from the same sign.
correct.
Okay, so these are all, okay, I just want to make sure I understand the photos. Okay, are you going to call your witness?
Yes.
Okay, very good, go ahead, sir, thank you.
Mr. Fines.
Where do you want me to go, Your Honor?
I can stand.
Yeah, let's
I
have,
can stand here and talk.
if you want to stand relatively close to each other, just try to talk into the microphone so the recording picks you up, that'd be fine.
Sure.
Your name for the record, sir?
Mark Feinstein?
Mark with a K?
Yes, ma'am.
And spell your last name? Uh-huh.
Feinstei.
And your relation to the association?
I'm the president of the condominium association.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Mark, since there was a narration on the officer's behalf, I'll let you do some narrating as well.
Okay.
Can you tell the honor that how this originally all started?
Sure. Your Honor, let me just give you a little background from our perspective. We have about 300 feet of privately deeded beach. That's the association's property. I've been there for a little over 8 years, and during the time that I've been there, prior to the signs being erected, we had a number of instances with regard to drunk people, with regard to, just problems, nuisances that were going on the property, which resulted in us obtaining permission from the town, from EPA, from the turtle people, to place signs which would alert people that this is a private beach and not to trespass. We went through a process of permitting, getting sign permits to put up the signs we had. And initially, we were allowed to have 4 signs. We had a sign on each end of the property, which Your Honor has seen the pictures of today. We also had two signs that were placed in the dunes. And the signs were simply to alert people that this was a private beach. Subsequent to that time, there was this drive which was initiated by the people who were in litigation with now on Tropical Drive, that there was sign pollution. And if I may. Sure. Get somebody a copy, Ron. Back. Perfect. If I may, Michael, yeah. So,
I guess stay there and just hold them up if you could, so that I'll follow along and the recording will get you as
Actually,
well.
I can give copies.
Actually, some of the
Is it,
photos,
is it the same or is it different?
they're different because these are the earliest photos before the ordinance.
Okay, so
So
before you
here's-
present them to me, show them to the town attorney and we'll, is it just one or is it two? Just one.
Oh, you know what? I need that back.
I'll look at hers.
Any objection to the town from that additional exhibit?
No.
All right,
Well, let me give you both of them at the same time.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any objection to that photo?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so with that, is that all, sir?
Well, here was one more. This was in the dunes.
The back of it.
Thank you.
All right, any objection to these additional 3 photos being added
No.
to the respondent's composite exhibit 2?
Okay, so this is-
So, and the,
Hold on, sir, just one second. With that, I'll add, for the record, I'll add the additional 3 photos to respondent's composite exhibit 2, making that exhibit contain a total of 10 photos and one site plan, again, without objection. Go ahead, sir.
so this was the original placement of the signs that were authorized and permitted. And as you can see, they're facing north and south, and they were much eastward of where the dune begins. And there was a drive amongst the residents, which ultimately resulted in the ordinance, which we're here on today. The purpose behind it was they wanted to get rid of the sign pollution. They didn't want to have to see signs that were up and down the beach.
And look, before you go on, I'm sorry to interrupt, just give me an estimate on the time of these photos. How far back in time am I going?
Just before December. So
So recent.
this was the state of the signage before the ordinance was
Okay, got it.
passed and before we were asked to relocate the signs.
Okay, thank you.
So after the ordinance was passed, I had numerous conversations with the town officials with regard to the placement of the signs to be in compliance with the ordinance. We then moved the signs to where they are now. I had conversations after the signs were placed, and the town official that I was dealing with said that they were fine, that first with regard to the placement of the post, that the dune is, in and out, and it's not linear, and the placement of the sign was fine. With regard to the two-sidedness of the
Your Honor, I'm
sign,
going to object to hearsay as to a town official.
It's a mission against interest.
Uh,
And he can identify who that official was.
That's fine. Go ahead and identify. I'll allow it
Sergeant
regardless.
Emery, I had very pleasant, numerous conversations with him. I also had conversations with Sergeant Chauvin. But with regard to after the ordinance was passed, my conversations with Emery, and he acknowledged that when the placement of the sign was okay because the dune goes in and out, it's not linear. And then when we had the conversation regarding the two-sidedness, and he re-reviewed the ordinance, he said, I can see how you can argue that it's okay to have sign faces on both sides of the post. We then had a conversation about the signs that were in the middle of the dunes, and if I may, I think it's important, where's the site plan? Is it in the code?
Yeah, I have it.
I think it's, Your Honor, if I can approach. I don't know how else to do this.
Yeah, go ahead and then,
And I'll show Christie. So Here's our community.
Mhm.
This is the Tropical Drive. These are the residents that have sued us, we're in litigation with now. And here's the beach. So the
Mhm.
beach is from here, it's about 300 feet to here. This is the end of Tropical. So the signs, this thing going in and out is a representation of the foliage of the dune back when the survey was done. And so the signs, one would be right here on the south corner and one would right be on the north corner. But before, we also had signs right here in the middle showing to the east that it's private beach, no trespassing, Turtle Beach only. So that's all I want to show you.
Okay, thank you.
After my conversation with Sergeant Ermery, we agreed, even though he acknowledged that the way that we read the ordinance was it's pertaining to signs that were eastward of the dunes, and that those signs may very well not have been affected by the ordinance. In cooperation and good faith, we agreed to remove those signs. So the only signs that are on the property now are the posts on the north side, the posts on the south side, and there's a sign that's attached to the walkover, which isn't subject to the hearing today. So the reasonable interpretation, and then after I got the notice of violation, I was actually shocked and surprised, and Officer Ermery had said, I guess, I wasn't right, or, words to that effect, that it's, a different interpretation than what we had discussed. So, that's basically it, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Town, do you wish to cross-examine the witness, or, I'm sorry, Counselor, are you finished?
Let me just check my notes.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. I understand. I do want to ask him a few questions, if I could.
Go ahead,
Is it your position, Mr. Feinstein, and the position of the association, that the ordinance is ambiguous?
Yes.
How so?
It's able to be interpreted in multiple ways. The ways that we have interpreted that the toe of the dune, which isn't defined, is vague, that, how many feet is it off to where the vegetation ends? I mean, we have vegetation in the pictures that's going past where the post is now. So there's no guidance as to a specific distance, whether it's 2 feet, 3 feet, 5 feet, 9 feet from where they believe that the dune commences. So, how am I supposed to know exactly where I'm to put the post? In addition, Your Honor, the incline is, there is absolutely, when you look at the pictures and you're out there, there's an incline coming in. I mean, the whole idea of a dune is to protect what's behind it. And there is absolutely an incline, and there's vegetation that's east of where the sign posts are. So, I think, Sergeant Ermery is a reasonable person. I think Sergeant Chauvin is a reasonable person. I think I'm a reasonable person, and we all have interpreted differently. So I certainly think that the ordinance at best is vague.
Also, is it the position of the association that there was prior approval of the actual location of the signage?
Yes.
Is it your testimony in this hearing that the signs are in fact at the toe of the dune?
Yes. And one other thing I need to point out, unlike any other property in Ocean Ridge, our property is next to Tropical and to Douglas, and then there's a little private area, a public beach next to the property owner residing next to us, Elliot Zanks, or his family's property. And we have a lot of transient traffic. We have a lot of people that are coming from, there's a little hotel that's not supposed to rent for less than 30 days, but there's people always coming down there. The tropical, I call it Tropical Path. The Tropical Path is a convenient area for drop-offs for people that we routinely see Ubers, people coming out, even though there's a sign that says no drop-offs, stopping their cars, multiple people going out, going down to the beach. And it's important that the signage show that, hey, this isn't a public path, it's a private path, it's a private beach. So that's another reason that's important to have the signage there.
And finally, is it the position of the association that you've complied with the intent of this ordinance?
Yes, the intent of the ordinance was to clean up the sign pollution up and down the beach. Where we have placed the signs, when you're standing on the beach, walking up and down the beach, you're not looking at our signs. Our signs are up by the area when, you're coming down from the path,
No other
on
questions?
both sides.
No other questions?
Thank you, sir. Any cross-examination from the town?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Feinstein, so
Yes, ma'am.
I'm confused and I wanna clear out because I have your composite exhibit 1 and composite exhibit 2, and there's a bunch of photos. So I understand. The current signs on the north and south are this sign in red with the white face
Yes.
and this sign in white with.
No, those are both on the south side.
So these are this, okay. So the north sign is this one?
No, that's the south one as well. I think we left out, I didn't bring, and that's
You didn't bring a north?
my problem, my fault.
So you may not have a picture of the north sign in your.
Correct, but it's similar, if not identical to the south side.
All right, so let me go back to the town.
And just to help you a little bit, that the original signs that were cited were just stock signs until we could get the Turtle Beach signs made, because they wanted, and in good faith, we wanted to comply, so we put the stock signs, and that's.
So you mean, when you say stock signs,
You're right,
the black
right.
and white?
And those were the ones on both sides, so that might be the confusion.
Okay, so.
And those were all changed.
In the town's exhibit, do you have a hard copy of the town's exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I can. All right. So based on Sergeant Chopin's testimony,
I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
No, you're
is it Chopin?
Chauvin.
Chopin, okay.
It's probably been Americanized.
Which, is this? So these are his original pictures, so the color's off.
Those aren't original pictures. Oh, that one is.
Is this the north sign?
That is the north side.
This is the north one.
No, that's the south one.
Okay.
To clarify, I don't know if there's anybody, either side who's put that exhibit in photos on the north. I don't know.
Well, I thought Sergeant Chopin testified that there were 2 pictures of the north side and 2 pictures of the south side.
He said 15 and 16 were south and 17 and 18 were north.
Okay.
But I don't think it's the current sign.
Neither of those were current. The red signage is the current.
Those were taken on the initial inspection.
Correct,
So-
correct. I'm just trying to get a feel for, okay, so that's 16. And then, okay, the palm trees. And so this one appears to be number 17 in the town's exhibit. And then
Yes, I believe that's the north one.
this one is also 18, so these are the north sign.
Looks like it.
Okay,
Prior-
but the
prior to-
original sign,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
all right,
From the 13th.
okay. Mr. Feinstein, did the physical location of the signs change since he did his original inspection?
If they did, it was minimal because they had to put the red signage on there.
Okay, all right,
And there was an electronic device put in one of them.
okay, all right, so now I understand. Now, going back in time, you testified that you had previously received approval for having 4 signs on the beach property.
Correct.
What were the locations of those 4 signs?
2 in the dunes and 2 further east of where they are situated now.
Okay, so going back to the exhibit that you presented, which of these signs are in the dune?
None of them are in the dune.
None of them are in the dune.
This one,
Oh, I'm sorry.
This one.
This one's in the dune.
yes.
Okay. And when you testified as to this site plan, the squirrely line that's on the site plan, is that the vegetation
Yes.
line?
I think it's
Okay.
squiggly and not squirrely. That's okay. I think
What
it's
did you-
squiggly line, not squirrely line.
Oh, did I say squirrely? Sorry, you're correct, squiggly. So the squiggly line is vegetation line.
Yes,
So when the previous approval for your signs, they would have been landward of the squiggly line? If they were in the dune?
I'm sorry.
Which signs?
The
Original
original
originals?
signs that the town permitted you for,
The original signs that we were permitted were in the beach on the, where you saw the picture, where it's in the middle of the beach looking north, and also in the dune.
in the dune, okay. Sure they weren't on the toe of the dune?
They could have been in front of the dune.
Okay,
There's not a definition of toe.
okay. And when you spoke to Sergeant Armory, that was before you received the
And I
notice of
apologize
violation?
for mispronouncing his name.
That was before you received the notice of violation.
Yes, that's
So when
why
you received the notice of violation,
I was
it
surprised.
was your understanding that the town was enforcing the ordinance as the town believed the ordinance is to be interpreted.
Somebody made the decision at the town to say what Sergeant Emery and I had agreed upon the interpretation was not correct, and they were doing it and interpreting it a different way and saying that we had to comply.
And that interpretation dealt with the physical location of the signs.
Yes, and the double-sided signs,
Okay,
the faces.
so Sergeant Armory said double facing was fine.
We both, when we read the ordinance together, we went over this. Yes, we agreed that that was one way it could be interpreted.
And one way that it could also be interpreted is that you can only have a sign with one face.
Sure, that's why it's vague, and that's why, I believe I'm reasonable, I believe he's reasonable, I believe, Mr. Sachs is reasonable, and we interpreted that it was fine to have on both sides of the post.
Okay.
It's not a physical separate post, which is what I believe, you're referring to when you say you can't have more than 2 signs, or a sign every 200 feet. I certainly didn't think it was unreasonable.
Okay, and in terms of the notice of violation, once you received that, did you speak with Sergeant Armory again?
I spoke with, I can't say for certain whether it was Sergeant Armory, but I did speak to Sergeant Chauvin. And I think I know, you know what, I believe I did, I just don't recall exactly, other than in my mind, I believe it was words to the effect that meaning when he was saying it, I interpreted it wrong, I was wrong.
Okay. And did Sergeant Chauvin change your mind as to how the town was interpreting the ordinance?
No, I know that you were interpreting it different than I was interpreting it,
Okay.
and my attorney was interpreting it.
Okay, and are you aware of the deference provided to political subdivisions in towns' interpretation of their own code provisions?
I'm not aware of that.
All right. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you. Your Honor, I would like to move into evidence, and I apologize, I can ask the clerk to present it. I do have a copy of the prior permit that was issued for the signs of this property. I would love to move that into evidence.
Can they be printed and brought in?
Yeah.
Or it, rather?
I have no
Do
objection.
you
though I
need me to
haven't
send
seen
you
it.
a copy of it?
It won't get into the evidence until you see it. So-
It's just the site plan showing the location. Thank you.
And while she's printing that, let me just ask a couple of follow-up questions
Sure.
to you, sir. So the photos that you showed here of the original permitted signs, and the permit's gonna come in, but do you remember when the permit was issued, ballpark, till we get the actual
A
permit?
few years ago.
Couple, so recent, very recently.
A few years ago, I mean,
When you moved the signs to this location and the equivalent, this old original sign, did you get a permit for those locations?
No.
Okay. As I read the ordinance, a sign would have been required. Let me ask the town attorney.
Let me object, it's not part of the violation notice. Same thing with the 5 signs, I mean, we're being ambushed by things.
No, I'm not asking with regard to finding you in violation for not getting a permit. My concern is you have an estoppel argument on the locations where they originally were, but you don't have an estoppel argument on the locations where they currently are if you do not have a permit for that location.
I wouldn't believe I have an estoppel argument based upon the representations of the sergeant.
I understand that, but I'm speaking specifically to the permits. Or one permit if it was one for all 4 signs, but let me wait till she comes back with the permit and I'll take a look at it and you can take a look at it as well. But I just wanted to be clear as to whether or not there was a permit for the current location
and even
of
though
the signs.
Mr. Sachs may not agree with me, get upset with me as my lawyer, as the association lawyer, but we voluntarily would have moved the sign from where they were anyway. I mean, we're trying to be good stewards of Ocean Ridge, and we had no problem with moving them from, because the intent of the ordinance was to get rid of signs up and down the beach, so you wouldn't see it in line of sight. So, in good faith, we put them where they were, and we also believed and were told it was in compliance with
In
the ordinance.
compliance, okay, very good. I appreciate that initial testimony. Let me turn it back to the town attorney. Your request was to issue or to add to evidence this document. Can you explain to me and the respondent's counsel, what the document is?
This is the document from the town records showing the previous sign permit that was issued for the location of the signs.
This is one from a few years ago?
That's the initial one, the survey that we provided them that allowed us to put the sign.
And the handwriting is?
I think that was probably ours.
I'm not sure whose handwriting it is.
Excuse me?
I'm not sure whose handwriting it is. But there were only 4 signs that were approved.
I have no problem with the concept, but I do have a problem since we can't identify who wrote approved, not approved. I mean, that's not evidence.
Well, we can certainly ask Mr. Feinstein if the ones that have the handwriting approved next to them were the signs that were approved that were previously installed by the condo
But
association.
sure, you could ask him, I'm just saying, as far as the document itself, there's no predicate at this point.
Okay.
And I guess let me ask the clerk before she leaves. Was there another page? Oh, she's gone. Was there another page to this?
Yes, there was the front page where the town manager sent this to Turtle Beach Condo Association on July 27th of 2020.
Let me just object to the relevancy of stuff from 2020. I don't know what that has to do with today.
Well, we had Mr. Feinstein testify to everything that's occurred, certainly since 2020 regarding the signs on the beach. So I think it is relevant to where the signs were previously approved and where the signs are currently located in terms of the sign's current location not being at the toe of the dune.
So I'll note your objection. Let me ask the clerk, can you print the first page, what amounts to the full approved permit?
Just didn't make other copies of it. Do you want me to?
That's fine. If you can just present it to me and show, actually, I'll hand it to him since you can run this, I'm sorry. So that's the first page on top of this, okay.
Okay, other than the relevancy, I have no objection to the document.
So that's gonna be a 2-page exhibit.
And again, as to the second page, my objection is to the handwriting.
To the
It can't be
handwriting, okay.
identified.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You already asked the witness to handle the handwriting.
Yes, just give me 1 second to read, please.
Okay.
All right, before you ask any additional questions, I'm just gonna note for the record, I'm gonna admit this additional permit 20116 dated July 27, 2020. On page 1 of the permit, it says this letter will serve as an approval from the town to proceed with the installation of 4 signs as shown in the sketch attached. I'm gonna admit it over objection, and proceed with your questioning.
Mr. Feinstein, have you seen this document before?
Yes,
Do you know whose handwriting is shown as, it appears in blue ink, not approved?
I thought I did, but I do not. That's not my handwriting and I didn't put that there, and I don't know who did.
Okay, looking at the handwriting that says approved, is that the general location of where you had previously installed signs?
Yes,
Okay, and looking at the handwriting that says not approved, is that generally locations where signs were not installed?
correct.
Thank you.
May I cross the witness on that exhibit?
Yes, you can add.
Mr. Feinstein, is it the position of factually, is it the position of the association that the currently installed signs are no further to the east than the original approved permitted signs?
Yes.
May I ask a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Which approved signs are we talking about? Because there's 4, 2 are clearly at the toe of the dune and 2 are much further
The
out.
ones on the north and south.
So that's the location of your current signs, approximate location?
No. Those, on this exhibit where it says approved, those were the signs in the beach that I showed you a picture of. And Mr. Sachs's question was, are the signs that are currently there no further east than the signs that had been previously approved? And I said, that's correct.
Okay, well, I'm confused because there's 4 signs that were approved in 2020.
Okay.
2 are clearly more seaward on the northern and southern boundary of the property, and the 2 interior are at the toe of the dune. So which signs are we talking about when you say the signs are in the location as previously approved?
Eastward of what was previously approved. They're no further eastward than what was previously approved. So prior approval was in the middle of the beach, these 2 signs on the north and south. The signs that are existing now are well further west of those signs.
Okay, landward of,
Okay,
okay.
and again,
Would you then, looking at this exhibit, say that the location of the signs on the northern boundary and southern boundary are closer to what was the 2 northern and southern boundary signs that were not approved in
Yes.
2020?
yes.
Okay, and what's the difference between the current approved signs or the current signage and the approved signs that are in the interior of the property back in 2020?
They're roughly in the same area because that dune actually is further landward, as you say, than it was at this time when the survey was done. That the dune had been eroded to an extent. Now it's coming back. So probably the signs that are approved that were next to the dune are probably further, that spot is probably a few feet, if not more, off where the berm drops off now.
When you say off, do you mean seaward or landward?
The berm, this berm, it is
The
my,
vegetation?
the
The
vegetation,
squiggly line?
the squiggly line, not the squirrely line. The squiggly line is more landward now towards the west than it was when this was depicted. So it's now coming back. The beach, as you know, comes in and out. The beach is actually fairly big now. And we're starting to get more sand and vegetation to grow I can show you the picture. I mean, when the picture drops off, you can see no, if I can see a picture.
Right, here, I can-
Here, this is a good picture. You want me to show you? So,
Which, do you have any idea what, is that from your second round of exhibits or your first?
Second round.
Second round, so this
It's
is
the
a,
original.
this is a 2020 sign.
Yes.
yes, but this wasn't taken, this is a 2020 sign, but this wasn't taken in 2020.
Okay, when was that taken?
Probably close in time, I'd say more 2021 maybe. I
Okay,
think it was more close in time to when litigation was going on with, and currently is going on with the Tropical Crew.
okay,
So what I'm referring to is this area that drops off, that is, here's our walkover, see the walkover? And then this area drops off. This area is further back than it was when that survey was done. So those approved signs that are next to the squiggly line there's probably a few feet of gap to where those signs were initially approved and where the sand and the vegetation start now.
Okay.
So that's all I was trying to, because
I got you.
it goes in and out.
okay, I got you.
And again, it's not a linear line. It's constantly moving. And we do have good vegetation that's starting to grow. That's shown in the picture that we provided of the current placement of the sign.
All right, let me ask you a few more questions. So when the change out to the red and white signs, when was that done?
Sometime after we were initially cited, because again, when we put up, the sign was initially stolen. And then when we wanted to get the sign back up because of the, people, that the black and white sign went up. So our original sign was like the white and green Turtle Beach sign.
Yeah, the original ones,
Right.
okay.
And then that sign was stolen, and we put up another sign with the black and white. And that was shortly after the ordinance was, you know what, I can't tell you for certain. But it was sometime before December 23rd. So I can't tell you exactly when. And then after the new signage came in, the red signs, that's when it was just swapped out. But that was after the initial December 23rd notice of violation.
Well, the notice of violation was the 13th, I think you mean, right?
I thought it was the 23rd.
The
Maybe
13th was the notice of violation, the 23rd was the.
Okay, all right, so,
Okay. So these red signs, red and white signs were put up after the 23rd.
correct.
Okay. We are starting this year off with a bang here in code enforcement today. Let me ask the town a question as it relates to the permit. When the town issues permits for signage, does the permit approve the exact location of the signage?
I can't testify or talk to that because this actual permit was done before I was representing the town. But it's my general understanding that they would require someone to do like the site plan with the hand sketches of where the signs would generally go. That's my general understanding.
And what's the town's position as it relates to this permit and the signs that are currently there?
That when from a legal position, when the town changed the ordinance to provide for regulations on beach signs, that all the beach signs had to come into compliance within 30 days. and that there was no grandfathering in of signs that had been previously permitted.
I guess, let me just ask one more question as it relates to 8, is that 8D? No, I guess it's just subpart D of 70-9. It says, all persons desiring to erect a beach sign shall apply for a building permit. So the town's current ordinance, if I had property on the beach today and I wanted to put a sign on the beach under the town's current ordinance, would I have to get a permit for that sign?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I get one, based on that permit issue, get one piece of evidence in?
Go ahead.
Okay. If I could ask.
Come to the podium so the.
If I can ask Mr. Feinstein's question, does the association have some type of a permit?
It's my understanding that we have a general maintenance permit that now we don't have to go out and anytime we do something that is regarding maintenance of the property to apply for a permit. It used to be that if we were fixing the septic system or doing whatever, we'd have to apply for separate permitting. Now there's, my understanding is a general permit that is in effect for a year that allows us to do, other than putting up a new structure or things of that nature, do what we need to do with regard to the property.
I have not, since there's no violation noticed us, I haven't really researched this issue or spoken to the town attorney on that issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they haven't been cited for it, but we do have the town clerk who is familiar with the building process, and I believe the interpretation of what that permit is that you have, it's not the same thing. So we may want to hear from Kelly Avery on what that facility permit allows.
Were you sworn? Okay, very good. Proceed. Your name for the record?
Kelly Avery.
Okay, can you just explain to me that he's referencing what amounts to a general permit?
Sure.
Can you explain that to me?
General maintenance permit is basically for any maintenance work that is done at the property. And that just includes like repairing, not for, the signs would not be included in that. That's just for maintenance on the property.
For general maintenance work to the
General
property?
maintenance. And it's an
Okay.
annual permit and needs to be paid for every year.
Okay,
It's not a one-time thing.
okay, thank you for that additional clarification. All right, so let me, I guess, go back to the remedy. As I see it, the issues are a little bit different. The two-sided sign, I think, is pretty clear. The location is a little bit more difficult. The town's position is that the two signs that are currently there as of the sergeant's most recent inspection, re-inspection, I guess, based on the notice of violation, because was your inspection today? Nobody called you for compliance inspection?
No, I went out this morning just to see if there had been any changes made.
Okay. Based on, let's stick to the December 23rd, because that's technically your re-inspection date where you would have determined compliance. As of that date, your position is that the signs, the location is still too far seaward.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you approximate?
And approximately the same distance. It would be approximately 9 feet from the toe of the dune on the southern side and approximately 12 feet from the toe of the dune on the northern side.
Okay, as of the 23rd, okay, thank you. And I guess, let me hear from Mr. Feinstein. What I heard you say earlier is that you were attempting to comply with the town's ordinance. I mean, and I guess your counsel probably have to weigh in here too, but if it's just a matter of moving the signs back some number of feet, is there a general objection to that and you're sticking firm with this is not defined in the code, or I'll defer to you first, or is this, no, these are code compliant now? I mean, where are we starting here, I guess is where
Well,
I'm
if
trying
we were in
to.
a negotiation, my client would definitely take a position that I think Your Honor would want to hear. But for purposes of today, where my client's been cited
You're
for
code
violation,
compliant.
we're compliant.
Okay.
We're compliant because of the vagueness of of the ordinance, not only as to the two-sidedness, but even as to the toe measurement and the location. I mean, you've provided photos. I'm not going to do my closing, but my argument is that we believe that we are in good faith compliance with a vague and ambiguous ordinance that was recently enacted. And today, the hearing's gone long because we're flushing out a new ordinance, which is what happens sometimes. But my client's a compliant type person, so obviously he's not looking to create a major case out of this. But we were brought here today and we're just defending it.
All right, I guess nobody's gonna like to hear what I'm about to say, but, what I'm gonna need, I haven't heard, again, to me, the sign face, the ordinance is very clear. The plain language of the ordinance is very clear. The sign must face to the east or to the west. That's very clear. It doesn't say both, it says either or. So I'm comfortable there. I'm less comfortable on the placement. I haven't heard either side present to me what actually is the toe of the dune. I've heard your arguments and I've heard one side say you're compliant, the other side saying you're not. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to request that you both draft me no more than 3-page memos. They can be single spaced, but I'm over 40, so please don't make the font any less than 10 or 11. And present to me 3-page memos outlining your positions, and I'm going to refrain from finding violation at today's hearing. I'm going to wait for you to submit to me your written memos, and I'm going to rule on this at the next hearing, which I'll defer to the clerk for that specific date.
Your Honor, may I have in my 3-page memo, you want findings of fact, conclusions of law? Or closing argument?
No, your legal position as it relates to this matter. What you choose to focus on is certainly up to you.
No, I understand, but I'm talking the format, whether it's my closing argument as opposed to here's the order we would like Your Honor to sign.
No, I do not want a draft order. I want your legal position, whether you deem that your closing, but, and again, formulate it however you want, but I do not want a draft order. I want your position as it relates to this violation, this alleged violation. I also want the same from the town. Do you have a date?
February 6th.
Okay, so I'll ask that those memos be submitted, that's what, a Tuesday, right? So let me just get the calendar here, bear with me. I'll ask that you email those directly to the town clerk by close of business on the 2nd. Of February. And I'll ask that when you email them, you copy each other. So copy opposing counsel when you send to the clerk. And then I'll ask the town clerk once she's received them to email them to me, both of them.
Your Honor, may, in that 3-page argument, even though I understand the court's preliminary ruling on the issue of the interpretation of the either or, may I address it?
You certainly may, yeah, address, and again, I've not made any ruling today. I've signaled to you that I think that language is pretty clear, but yes, feel free to address all.
And the reason I bring that up is because of the testimony of the officer and a court reporter, there are some statements that he made, which I believe would help support my argument that there's an issue.
Yeah, and you're free to go into any or all of that.
Okay.
What I would ask, I've admitted the evidentiary case files of both sides, so you don't need to spend time in your memos, either of you, addressing exhibits that have already been made part of the record. That's been done as of this morning. I guess for the purposes of this morning's hearing and what my order will ultimately be is a continuance order. And let me just get back to the agenda packet. I need to find,
And there's one other thing, when Your Honor has a minute, regarding the timing of the next hearing.
yep, just give me 1 second. I guess let me ask the town staff as it relates to, I think I heard way at the beginning of this case introduction that the original notice of violation contained a January 2nd hearing date, but that today's hearing was set by some other method. Can you please explain, was it sent by certified mail or was it?
I believe the clerk sent that via email to Mark Feinstein, which I had contact with him via that email before. And
So the party stipulated to today's hearing date?
Yes,
Okay, so no objection to today's
Oh, no,
hearing and having
no,
proper
no.
service for today's hearing?
not at all.
Okay, very good. So what I'll do is I'll have my order reflect that the town had sufficient legal service for the notice of violation and then stipulated service for the reset hearing date of January 9th.
As to the February 6th date, I'm going to be out of the country, so if there's any way it could be moved a little more than a week, and I'll have somebody else from my office handle it.
Your Honor, let me ask a question, because what I've done in other cases is if we submit like our memos, then if we stipulate to just allowing the magistrate to make a ruling based on those memos and not set it for another hearing, unless Your Honor feels like there might be a need for further testimony or questions.
Yeah, I'd prefer to reserve for additional testimony if that's amenable to both sides. I guess as it relates to timing then, is there an ability, are you out that entire week? or-
I'm coming back on the 14th, I'll be in Asia.
Let's see.
Back lunch for everybody.
Next hearing is March 5th.
Vietnam.
What's the town's preference? Would it be to push it to March or to try to move it to the week before you leave? When do you leave? Are you available on the?
No, I'm leaving on January 25th, coming back February 14th. It's the Vietnam
Okay.
and Thailand.
Oh, nice.
Excuse me for breathing in the microphone. All right, any objection from the town to set it for the March hearing then? Or do you want to try to do it after the 14th when he comes back?
Your Honor, we don't have an objection to March 5th. I just would, if the ultimate ruling is in violation, that would take into consideration the additional time that's been provided.
What's your response to that?
I'm not sure.
All right, how is the calendar for the 16th? You'll be back by the 16th of February?
I'll be, yes. I'm almost
So
positive.
that's a Friday, my
Come
favorite
back
thing
on
to
the
do.
14th.
I'll be out on Friday, the 16th.
I was hoping.
Could we do the week after?
Yeah, how about the 20th?
We have planning and zoning here.
It was canceled.
It was canceled, so we could do it,
The stars are aligning.
exactly,
All right.
the 20th of February.
20th of February at 10 a.m.?
Perfect.
Okay.
And as far as the timing of the memos,
You're asking me for more time, sir.
no, I'm not asking for more time. No, I'm actually.
No, I'm
not.
happy to.
No, I'm not, because I'm able to write them all the way anyway, so I don't mind.
You want to wrap it up
getting
before
early.
you go on
Yeah,
vacation,
wouldn't
I
be bad.
understand. Yeah, you can submit it as early as you'd like.
What would be the latest?
Let's stick with that February 2nd. Yep.
Okay. Very well. Thank you. Ron.
Would that be at 10 a.m. as well? On
Yes.
the
I'm at
20th?
20.
10 a.m. Does that work for you, sir?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I failed to ask you.
That's okay.
Okay, so with that, anything further from either side?
No, you're not.
Okay, with that, in case 2023-013, I've found sufficient legal service and stipulated service for this morning's hearing with regard to the notice of violation and the notice of hearing. I've entered the respective parties' evidentiary case files in the matter, and I will reset this for a violation hearing on February 20th at 10 a.m., at which time I will make a ruling. I'll also have my order reflect that your 3-page memos are due by close of business on February 2nd, 2024. And with that, I will see you all on the 20th of February.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was fun.